Hey, Branson.
Hey, sir, how you doing?
All right, how are you?
I'm all right, sir.
You ready for your big weekend with in Aiden?
Yeah, that's next weekend.
Oh,
Um,
next weekend, not
yeah,
this coming weekend, the next one.
yeah, the first is the fourth. Yeah, the fourth.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I think I found my niche and found like the lane, especially working with like just these small towns. I even talked to the mayor pro tem of Ayton. He called me himself. Um, and said he seen the event that I did in Wilson and asked me to come up with a proposal to maybe do a media plan for the city. Um,
Wow.
so I've did that. I used Chat GPT and Bard to get that together. I know it's good because my wife is an English major and she cursed me out because I asked her to proofread it, and she was like, "This is wonderful." And then I told her how I did it, and she was like, "You mean to tell me I went to school for 4 years to be an English major, and you can go to a AI and put all your ideas in it, and it gives you this back?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Then what in the world I'm doing with my degree?" I don't know, man.
I think a lot of people are going to be asking that question.
I really do. Because I wouldn't have been able to do what I've been doing lately without it.
Yeah, that's cool. There's another AI that's specifically for writing. I think it's called Jasper. You might
Jasper. Yeah.
check that out. Yeah, I think it's specifically for writing. I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I listened to their head of marketing talk about what they're doing, um, and they're a little bit older than some of the other AI companies, but they seem to be doing pretty good. I haven't tried it, but I think they do aim at writing stuff, like proposals and stuff. And then the other one that I've been reading about um, is is an AI called Tome, Tome. And what Tome does is it basically prepares PowerPoint presentations.
Hmm.
So if you want to present to a group, it helps make that presentation make sense. So I have played around a little bit with that. It's an amazing technology also, but it's specifically about creating presentations. So that might be helpful to you as well. Tome, Tome. So, all right. What's happening, Dees? How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I read something that one of the factories there by where you are, I think it's VinFast, is giving money to a local church that their building is being torn down by the state for a highway. Um, and they're going to give money to the church so they can buy a new building. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they're doing that.
Yeah, we have three. We have VinFast, which is in Chatham County down near Moncure, like off 64 and 1 on the way to Raleigh.
Yeah.
And then, Toyota is just a half mile below us, and we're like 12 miles south of Greensboro. But in between them is one, it was used to be Cree, now it's going to be Wolfspeed. It's
Yeah.
semiconductors, and that's my old boss guy I worked for after college. He had a beer and wine distributorship, sold it to the Budweiser house here in town after like 40 years and had to reinvest his money. So he bought 1,000 acres out in Chatham County, and D.H. Griffin, the wrecking company, bought the other 1,000. So together they have 2,000 for that mega site.
Wow.
But I
So
got in touch with him when they said it was official that he was getting Wolfspeed. And I said, congratulations. And he said, well, it's not a home run, it's a base hit. And I said, how do you mean? And he said, well, they're only taking 500 of the 2,000 acres. And I said, oh, I guess that is one base out of out of a home run.
yeah. Yeah, but what are they paying for the 500, right?
I don't know, and I don't know if I don't know if he'll tell me.
Yeah. No, I'm sure.
I pick on him because he's Greek, and I say, well, you taught me a lot because you're Greek, but you won't tell me. He won't tell me everything.
Well, you can tell him, this is what I had a friend who was Greek, and we used to always tell him, Greek men make sheep nervous.
The men are men and the sheep. The only thing I ever learned from him was Greek curse words.
Oh, that's funny. Did he teach you to drink ouzo?
No, I already got a piece of that one time in Key West with some guys from Greece after the bar closed, and we were looking for somewhere else to stay up all night. But that was 30 years ago. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
black
that's tough.
liquor is what it tastes like.
I worked in Virginia Beach 2 summers when I was in college, and my twin brother worked as a waiter at this restaurant that was owned by a Greek guy, and it was kind of like the secret city hall of Virginia Beach, because all of the chief of police and all the politicians all hung out at this place called the Heritage Restaurant, and their big deal to break you in was you had to drink ouzo with them. So and it
Yeah.
was after the restaurant closed at night, and man, that stuff was like,
I hope we have everything.
black licorice or something. I don't know. Hey,
So that's
Jason, good morning.
That's where the real decisions were made for that town, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Guy's name
Hey,
was
Davis.
Lucky. I don't know what his real Greek name was, but everyone called him Lucky.
Lucky or Jimmy or something.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how you got stuff done in Virginia Beach back in the day, is go to the Heritage Restaurant and drink ouzo with Lucky. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming in today. Our last class for this one. Branson will remember this guy, but what we're going to watch, so one of the guys that I've worked with is a guy named Andy Galinsky, and Andy was basically an executive in charge of acquisitions for large consumer product goods companies. And when he was at Clorox, he was the guy who bought Burt's Bees for over $1 billion from for Clorox. He was working for Clorox at the time, and that's where I met him. So he has worked for Gillette, almost every major consumer products good company. He's a very humble, down-to-earth guy, and his presentation I think you'll really like. And he's very open to being contacted and talk to him. He really likes the Accelerate Rural, and he's a global guy. He's a PhD, but he's humble and down to earth, and you can talk to him. And I find this presentation to be one of the most thrilling is not the right word, but motivational. When you listen to him talk, I think it'll make you feel his enthusiasm. And this guy's been around a long time, worked with a lot of companies. So hopefully this will be enjoyable. I think it's about 25 minutes long, so it won't be too bad. So hang on there, and we'll get that going. That many of you know, Andy Galinsky, who is kind of my, I call him the CPG GOAT, the greatest of all time consumer product goods guy. And I'm not going to steal any thunder from him, but you'll see why he's the GOAT after his presentation. And the plan here for everybody is Andy's going to talk for about 35, 40 minutes or so about what he's doing, and it's open. Andy is not, he's not afraid to answer questions or engage. So don't hesitate to do that. I do want to make just a point that we try in our program to bring in outside experts in various areas. And Andy has been part of our program since we started. And I'm very, very flattered, impressed that he would take his time to meet with us. But we do try to foster outside expertise and even mentors in some cases to help our students. Also, I want to explain to the students that, please, Lee and her team may well ask questions of you at the end after Andy's presentation. Feel free to say whatever, including negative. It's okay. We can take it. But she's very curious about some of your experiences. And Lee, we have a mixture of folks who have taken this class more than once, and also first-time people. So I think you in your email, you said you wanted to ask some questions, so we'll do that. But with all of that, I'm now going to introduce my friend Andy, who is going to just get you all so jazzed up. I'm not going to be able to get you back into the presentation afterwards.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Let me. I assume I'm okay with sharing screen.
Yeah.
I have some.
I made you. Hopefully, we did that, and Grant will help us if we.
Okay.
fail.
Fantastic. Let me make it happen. Here we go. So what I've put together is a set of slides that hopefully you can all see that will give a little bit of additional context to the conversation, but by no means is this just a slide presentation. I'd love to get your comments, questions. Please jump on in as we go along. My name is Andy, as Dennis mentioned, great fan of the state of Pennsylvania. In fact, I was just in Pittsburgh a week ago. Fantastic vibe there. A lot of exciting things happening in the city. My background is in consumer packaged goods, consumer products. I have worked for over 20 years for a set of large consumer packaged goods companies, launched a whole bunch of products into the marketplace, most of which are still on the shelf today, which is amazing. Did about $2 billion of acquisitions, and I'll talk a little bit about the role that M&A or mergers and acquisitions can play in the consumer products world. And now I'm running an entrepreneurial firm, doing what I've always dreamed about doing, which is helping a broad range of companies with either new product introductions or innovation work. So let me go ahead and kick this into slideshow mode and get started. What I'd love to do today in the next 30-35 minutes is cover a couple of topics. One is the power and value of branding in consumer goods. Talk a little bit about some of the metrics and ways to know when you've got a powerful consumer brand, and then talk a little bit about, in this day and age, the role of new brands in the consumer packaged goods industry. Now, all of you are lifelong consumers of consumer brands, so you are by definition experts. How many of you are working or have worked recently in a consumer products company or specifically on a consumer brand? Anybody in the group? Anybody? Dennis? Yeah. Any of the group from Penn State?
Not recently. I mean, depending on, you could say all our teams, a lot of our teams have consumer brands, but I would say they don't have a brand yet because they don't have a following. So I don't, you know.
Okay. And if I could ask, Lee, what your overall impression is of the industry? What your overall impression is of consumer brands? What would you say?
That's quite a question. Overall, I mean, I guess it's everything that an individual would go by themselves without representing a company, and it can be as trivial as a Band-Aid or as big as a Rolex.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would add that I think that from my perspective, there seemed to be a lot more niche consumer brands than there was when I was younger. It seemed like, there was all these consumer brands, and then there were all these store brands or private label, and that was about it. And now it seems like there's so many. I'm going to call them niche, but they could be giant niches. Sunbum, you've mentioned before, Andy. Other brands that just kind of seem to come out of nowhere, particularly the online ones that they really might be aimed at a very specific demographic or age group or population, whereas I think in the old days it was either big or private label.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the other bit about this group too is the why people buy. I think is changing, right? In terms of, it's not just the product, it's the company. I think that's why this is so compelling. What you guys do is you put a face to rural entrepreneurs who may not have that kind of, but then now I know who's making the jam or raising the cattle or doing these amazing artisan things. So I think that's a flip that we're starting to see.
You know, that is such an interesting observation. And over time, consumer brands have become more sophisticated. And part of their evolution has been they try to stand for more. You know, back in decades ago, you know, it was good enough to just say, "Hey, we sell mac and cheese," you know, type of thing. It's something very, very simple. Now there is much more both sophistication to how the sale is being done, but there's also much more meaning that is being put behind brands. It's not just what we do; it's how we do it. It's why we do it, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So brands have a number of attributes. One of them that I'd like to start off with is the power of branding. What is the value of branding? And there is a very inexact science out there around calculating brand value. This is a chart from last December that Forbes put out for the world's most valuable brands. And of course, the brand is listed at the left. The brand value is in the chart that's towards the middle, along with a one-year change of that brand value. And what the brand value is calculated as is the power of the pricing, the power of being able to get your brand on shelf with favorable shelf space versus competing brands. The power is the ability to leverage advertising that might be done on behalf of that brand, you know, instead of having to introduce it from scratch. If you're talking about a brand that people already have familiarity with, you've made your advertising much more efficient as a result. Of course, the chart after that is the brand revenue. This is the actual sales of the brand, and then the advertising that is after that. And as you look at the top 5 brands that Forbes has compiled, you know, you look at Apple. Their calculated brand value is about 241 billion. Their sales are very similar, right around 260 billion, which suggests that, you know, the brand has a certain power to it. You'll look at Microsoft, their brand revenue, their sales are 125 billion. Their brand value is 163 billion almost. It's larger than their sales. So it would suggest, which may feel counterintuitive actually, that Microsoft's brand power is a little bit stronger than Apple's, which I would not have guessed in advance. And when you calculate the brand value and it is greater than the revenue, then that suggests that the brand is working harder for that particular company than the other example, the Apple example. Look at Amazon. Sales of about 260 billion, brand value of 135 billion, about half of that. That suggests that the Amazon brand, as well known, as ubiquitous as it is not that strong by comparison. And if you think about it, it makes sense. I mean, how many of you buy on Amazon and you see something called Amazon Basics? Basics probably doesn't convey to you that it's the Rolex premium, version of that particular product. So it suggests kind of a low end, much more commoditized branding around Amazon. And that is reflected in the relatively low brand value versus the sales. In the second half of the brands from Forbes' top 10 list, there's a very interesting one called Coca-Cola, which kicks in. And you'll notice their sales are about 25 billion. Their brand value is almost 65 billion, more than twice the power of their, or the size of their sales. And you would probably be concluding right now, gosh, I'll bet their brand value is really working for them, working very hard for them. And you would be exactly right. You know, the mind share that Coke has in consumers' minds, you know, so many of them are wanting a Coke before they even think about what it tastes like, just because they're used to that brand, they're loyal to that brand, they're familiar with that brand, its ability to command pricing, its ability to get good margins with their vendors, with their bottle suppliers, with ingredient suppliers, their ability to get good shelf space at the 7-Eleven, at the Walmart, all the different channels that they sell in, is all reflected in the power of that brand. And you can see other great examples. Disney, very powerful brand. Samsung, its brand value is only a quarter of its sales. You know, there's another brand that you might say, huh, very commoditized. Their branding is not very powerful for their products. Same with McDonald's. Less than half of their sales is reflected in their brand value. So again, this is just one measure. It's not a highly scientific measure, but it gives you a feel for whether a brand is actually working hard for a company with consumer products that are trying to influence you and help convince you of the value of their proposition. One thing that is interesting about Coca-Cola is the consistency with which they have developed their branding. That's part of the secret sauce, and there are many case studies around how effectively Coke has done this. They started back in 1886, and you can see in the top of the slide that by about 1900, 1905, the script, the naming of and the logo of Coca-Cola has kind of already developed to the point where you and I can recognize it today in 2022. They've modified it periodically. They changed with colors, a little bit of tweaking with the fonts, you know, some logos around it with the bottle or not the bottle and with red swirls and things like that. But fundamentally, over the years, they have kept very close to a very consistent look and feel of the brand name. And the bottle that the product is even in has become iconic. You can see at the bottom, the initial bottle done in the 1890s and up to 1902 was a little bit different. But by 1900, excuse me, they had landed on a fundamental shape of a bottle. And if you looked at an outline of that bottle, pretty much any time from 1900 on to today, 2022, you'd say, huh, I recognize that bottle of Coke, whether it comes in a glass bottle, colored, clear, whether it came in a plastic bottle, you would say, huh, I think I recognize what that product is. And that is a really outstanding example of consistency and ability to get in consumers' minds a very consistent view of what that brand stands for. And that is part of the recipe for creating a powerful brand. You know, if you change your marketing message every 2 years, you know, a new marketing VP comes on and has a different idea, and then 2 years later that happens again, eventually a brand can stand for nothing. Even when they think they're talking a lot in the marketplace, they stand for nothing. You got to be consistent and have something that is a very powerful message that is repeated over and over to really help strengthen and create a powerful brand. So how about today? You know, it's kind of intimidating hearing about these 100-year-old brands and thinking, well, gee, what chance do I have of starting a new brand? Well, the good news is there are tremendous and powerful new brands that are being started every day. And these brands are, in many cases, reaching rapid success and really being able to meet a need that consumers have that is unique and differentiated and adds value to their lives. A great example of the food space, you know, we talked briefly about mac and cheese, I mentioned it, and I did so on purpose. You know, talk about is there a more humble product out there at the grocery store than simple mac and cheese? You know, those of us that have been around a while, we remember the neon yellow Kraft mac and cheese that's so iconic. And, you know, Annie's, an actual Annie that grew up in the 60s, in the 1980s, decided, you know, there is room for a more healthy, a more back to the farm version of mac and cheese. There's no reason that, you know, consumers can't have something that is as farm fresh in their mac and cheese product as it is in many other products that we're beginning to emerge at that time. And so in 1989, she founded the brand, literally sold it out of the back of her truck, you know, shown here in New England, driving from store to store in Rhode Island and Boston and Massachusetts, and ended up gaining some success, you know, initially starting with small farm standy kind of stores, but eventually going more mainstream. And the brand began growing rapidly in the 1990s. They went through a huge fundraising spurt in 2000 and then went public for many billions of dollars. And then they ended up being acquired by General Mills in 2014. This is now a large multi-billion-dollar brand. If you look at the store shelf today in your typical grocery store, you will actually see a longer line of Annie's mac and cheese, different SKUs and flavors and variants on the shelf than you will see Kraft mac and cheese, the iconic that has been around forever. So it's a great example where, just because it's a humble product category, just because a competitor's been around for many decades or potentially centuries, it doesn't mean that there isn't a consumer need that's not being addressed, that a great brand that can communicate what that fulfillment of that need is can come out and become very successful. A couple of other examples. I worked at Gillette early in my career, and I was stunned when in 2013, an upstart called Harry's started a blade company. And I thought, this is guaranteed to fail. When I worked at Gillette, their sales were over $6 billion. They had 85% dollar share in the United States. They crushed competitors, like squashed them like a bug. There was no room for a competitor. But the market began changing. And in 2013, Harry's recognized, what? There's room for something different out there. And they ended up buying a small little foundry and beginning to make blades. And within 6 years, they were offered $1.4 billion for their brand by Energizer. Part of the thing that Energizer Holdings found attractive was their business model. They were a direct-to-consumer company. They sold directly from Harry's on their website. And that's something that Gillette didn't know how to do very well. And so, once again, it can be the product itself, it can be the offering, it can be the way that they're going to market that is new and different, that creates value for consumers, and in this case, created sufficient value for Energizer to make a large offering for them. The deal ended up getting canceled by the FTC because of a concern about too much concentration in the blade space, which, again, for a Gillette veteran, that is stunning. Energizer, which has the Schick brands and some other smaller brands, combined with Harry's, being too much market power versus Gillette, mighty Gillette, stunning. And yet that shows how quickly the world had changed in the a mere 10 years since I had left the Gillette company. And on the bottom right is just a fascinating example. Truman's is a small company that was founded in February 19 to popularize this thing called Just Add Water system. Just Add Water are these cartridges that you stick into an empty bottle that you can fill with water, and the liquid in the water in the bottle would be squirted through the cartridge, and then out of the orifice would come whatever the kitchen cleaner that you're interested in. Kitchen, whether it's standard kitchen cleaner, shower cleaner, glass cleaner, whatever it might end up being. And the idea behind this is, instead of throwing away the entire bottle every time you ran out and needed a new refill, you would just open up the top, take out the old cartridge, put a new cartridge in, much less plastic, fill the thing with water, you're not shipping water, and voila, you're ready to clean your kitchen again. And the idea was that this would save on resources, on water, shipping water around the country, save on plastic, and it was kind of a sustainability play. The interesting thing about this is that Just Add Water system was around in 2005. I was a brand spanking new director of home care cleaning products at Clorox in 2005, and this came across my desk. And I thought, nobody wants to be a chemist. Consumers don't want to go through the trouble. There really isn't a need here. There's no value here. And so I, like many others, passed on it. And 14 years later, after many other companies also passed on this idea, Truman's picked up on it. And within 6 months, they had a $5 million investment from Henkel as they gained distribution in Target and began to get traction as a brand. So that goes to show you that sometimes even smart people pass on really good ideas, but even more, it shows you that times can change. Consumers were not ready in 2005 for the sustainability idea. But as you've been paying attention, you're very well aware that by February of 2019, consumers were very interested in sustainability, very concerned about ocean plastic, very concerned about water, and this proposition that nobody could get excited about back in 2005, became a proposition that solved the need that had emerged. Sometimes the need is there, but it's latent, and time can help change that and can bring that alive for consumers. So all that's to say that there is still room for consumer brands today. And another humble example of one that you wouldn't think would be ripe for disruption is the wet bath tissue market. This is a great example where in 2015, just 7 years ago, there was a Shark Tank deal from a startup that hadn't made any product yet, but just had a wild ambition that they wanted to beat the world's biggest bath tissue company, Charmin, at their own game in the United States. And they decided, you know what? Charmin markets to women. Really, their message isn't very resonating yet with men. There's a gap there for dude wipes, for men to have wipes that were for them. And it was an audacious idea. They got some initial funding in 2015. By 2016, they had gotten distribution in Target. Today, they're in over 12,000 stores. They're in every one of the 4,400 Walmarts in the United States of America. They're the #2 overall toilet product in Walmart, and they are now the #1 wet wipe product, beating Charmin. And up on the upper right-hand side of the slide is just some trash talking from their CEO, who just has had so much fun with, how many people said, you guys have stupid proposition. There's no way you're going to win in this market. And he's just, I love his quote, "I'll bet on passion, hunger, and authenticity every day of the week." And his last quote, "The giants are asleep at the wheel." And that's a really interesting commentary because, in some ways, large consumer products goods, they've got tons of money. They got people with brain the size of a planet from all the best marketing schools across the United States. And you would think they've got everything going for them. They've got the smarts, they've got the market power, they've got the capability, they've got the money. But you know what? Sometimes they get sloppy. Sometimes the world changes under their feet and they don't realize it. They've got their entire existence invested in the market being a certain way, fitting their model, fitting their success, fitting their MO of how to be successful in the market and win. And sometimes consumers change on them. And often the giants are the last to recognize it, or if they do recognize it, they're almost in denial. It's like, it's just a niche. It won't have staying power. And it's these small new brands like Dude Wipes that place a bet on the market really being different, and that they believe that they have the right to satisfy that market in a new and different way. They're the ones that get to win. So I'll just pause there, and I'd love if anyone has a shout out on their latest, coolest brand that they've seen start to get traction that they think is a great example of meeting a new need that is emerging in the world.
I'll just share a story of a company here that invented Tuft and Needle. They invented the first mattress that you can buy online and they'll ship it to your house. And it was created by these two guys were out, they're out in Silicon Valley, which don't drink that Kool-Aid. You don't have to be out there. And they made a list of all the things that pissed them off, that made them mad, that made them angry, that why is it that way? And they just put mattresses on there because if you haven't bought a mattress lately, it's not a fun thing. And they kept coming back to it. Well, it's interestingly enough, they got acquired by Sir Simmons, I think I don't know, Elizabeth, was it 8 years later or something? It was very quickly.
6.
Yeah. So I would agree. I think this is interesting in terms of opening the door up for early stage or small businesses to say, depending on what you're doing, you can do whatever you want. And just because you're small or just because you might be not in an urban area, that doesn't mean you don't have potential. So I think that's a great story. I would be curious. I think, Dennis, you said you had some entrepreneurs on with us, right? Who've been
Yep.
through the program.
Yep.
I would be curious, and Andrew, if I'm taking us off track, you can say, wait, we'll do that later. But I'm curious as to what some of the business owners, the entrepreneurs, are looking to do in terms of what they consider success, in terms of why they took the program and how maybe their concept of what success is has morphed as they've learned more about opportunity. That makes sense.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just delay that a little bit because Andy's got a tight time frame with his.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, and I think that you know, we'll definitely cover that. The other thing is what we found, at least around here, one category for me that's really been interesting has been grass-fed beef and meat. Okay, and what's really interesting to me there is there are people who are actually building significant brands online, selling grass-fed beef, and really their entire platform, from my perspective, is authenticity and transparency and honesty and connecting. And you know, some of us, I've talked to Lee about this, you know, about our online video, the live streaming e-commerce. That fits in with that same sort of thing where Amazon cannot compete with the honesty of a real person who's really doing the work, and much like these dude wipe guys, which I love their name, by the way. You know, they're authentic and sincere and they're passionate, and I think that's what our small businesses have going for them. And what we hope to do in our class is give them resources to help do that. That's really what it boils down to. Andy, I'm sorry to interrupt you and blab on so much. Go ahead.
Point. I love the point, Dennis, and you know, actually, Lee, I would just say that, you know, very few entrepreneurs have the full story figured out at the beginning of the launch of their brand or their company. The typical thing, and I'm sure anyone that started a company will reinforce this. You learn as you go. You think you've got the right proposition, and it turns out that people are interested in some angle a little bit off from that. And then, you know, that's the beauty of the entrepreneurial journey, is discovering that you were close, but that consumers actually have a little bit of a different idea than exactly what you had in mind.
Yeah, no, we experienced that, you know, in the many years that we've been doing this, we experienced that. It was more a function of, I always like to know what the goal of the entrepreneur is, because sometimes I'm not looking to create a $1 billion company.
That's right.
And trying to demystify that you all have to do that to be success. That's all I was.
Yeah, no, very, very good point. You know, one thing that I won't show the video, but hopefully some of you have heard about Simon Sinek, and ideally maybe have even seen his video on what does your brand stand for?
It's our first class every
awesome.
cohort. Because of you, you taught me that, and we now watch this video religiously.
Oh, this is outstanding. As you probably then know very well, the outer ring is the what. What does your company do? You know, this is often the starting point where companies talk about themselves. Inner circle, how do you do it? Is there something unique about how you do it? And at the core, it's why. What does your brand stand for? And, you know, going through the journey of really understanding as an entrepreneur what your brand stands for, the what, the how, and the most importantly, the why, is really powerful. And I have a couple of examples here of ways that bring that alive that I have found especially inspiring. You know, the missions and beliefs of a company are part of what helps define, you know, a brand's why. You know, one that's close to home here, I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Harley Davidson was born, and their mission statement is to fulfill dreams of personal, all-American freedom. That, you notice they're not talking about the word motorcycle at all in there. They're talking about how that product makes you feel. You know, Disney, to create happiness for people of all ages everywhere. These are uplifting, inspiring things that really are the mission of the company. And the beliefs are another way of being able to capture that as well. One of my favorites is Nike's belief. We believe that if you have a body, you're an athlete. Talk about making a brand relevant to every single human being in this country. Yeah, we all have bodies. I didn't know I was an athlete. It's aspirational. It kind of makes you like, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of cool. Maybe I need to learn more about that. And Tesla. It's not just about moving people around in a car. We believe the world needs to transition to sustainable energy. This is a belief that they have that underlies everything they do. And when you get these beliefs or these mission statements right, it's really a great way to flesh out the why of a brand exists, and to really help to create a tremendously consistent experience that is more authentic in how it's communicated to a consumer. So I'm a big believer that spending the time on that's really important. Another thing that's a real good attribute of a powerful brand is extendability. And Dennis mentioned Sunbum. This is one that I had the pleasure of helping SC Johnson acquire back in the spring of 2019. It's a sunscreen brand, very powerful sunscreen brand. And it was started back in 2010 by a pair of Australian entrepreneurs. And they came up with some very premium formulations, and they put some interesting branding around it, around relaxing and checking out for the weekend, and really just enjoying and embracing that time, the time away from the office. Even though with the price of the product, you'd think people would have to work pretty hard to be able to afford it. But it was a very successful, very clever way of marketing the brand. The cool thing about it, the one that made it especially valuable from an acquiring standpoint, is, of course, it addressed the sun care market, pretty significant market, about a $6 billion market in the US. But they created the kind of brand language, the kind of brand imagery, the kind of brand vibe that allowed them to extend it more broadly. To lip care, for example. Hey, we know beach skin. Guess what? Your lips are part of the skin on your body. They need to be taken care of as well. And how about babies? Babies need care on the beach as well. Baby's skin is so delicate and needs to be cared for. So they came up with a baby care set of products that address the $11 billion baby care market for sun care. And then who knows more about beach hair than Sunbum? They were able to continue to expanding into shampoos, and almost a $50 billion market there. So one of the things that's very powerful about a great brand is when you can successfully start at your core, but then you can expand beyond that into adjacent areas that make complete sense, where your brand has permission to play, and where you have something unique and valuable to offer to a consumer that builds on your core, but now allows you to expand how you can provide that offering to consumers in areas beyond the core. So when you think about a really powerful brand, think about how can they expand? What are ways that they can help grow their offering using their core branding and communication? Now, brands sometimes will have limits to how far you can take them. This is a particularly notorious example where Colgate decided, for reasons that are still not understood, that they needed to get into the frozen dinner market. And so they launched this delicious beef lasagna. They consumer tested it. Consumers thought it tasted really, really good. And they launched it, and it was a complete market disaster. It not only failed in the frozen food section, it also trashed their toothpaste business by over 25% for the first 6 months after this product launch. Partly because people were concerned, is there tomato paste in my toothpaste now? There was real consumer confusion and fear around what the heck was going on with the core brand. As exciting as brand extendability can be, you also have to be careful where your brand has permission to play and where it just does not make sense. And you would think that the largest consumer companies in the world would know this very well, but every day there are mistakes where brands are going places that they really don't have permission to go. And it's important to know what your brand stands for, but also what it doesn't stand for and where it can't go. But new brands are being brought up over and over again in consumer products. We talked about that a little bit at the beginning. And one of the reasons is sometimes a new need emerges that a current brand does not have the right to go and address, just like we saw the Colgate did not have the right to go and address the frozen food market. Recent new needs that have come up include plant-based beef, the Impossible brand in the upper left. You know, that's something that an existing brand might have tried. Something like Purdue may have tried it for chicken or something like that, but it's very risky. And in this case, it's such a new need that new brands are coming in, as opposed to existing legacy beef brands or meat brands are coming in to try to bring it alive and address it. EOS is a great example back in the mid-teens of how a fashion approach to a lip balm could provide a new need or a new way of addressing a consumer need. You know, Burt's Bees was all about beeswax, and for them to play the fashion card wouldn't have been very authentic. So EOS was created as a new brand to be able to provide kind of a fashion statement with the famous ubiquitous egg that you might all remember from about 7 years ago. The brand had some ups and downs, but it was a great example of a new need in fashion and lip balm being addressed in a new way. Who can forget the viral video that created Dollar Shave Club in the lower left? You know, this was an example where you almost mocked the excess of the success of the Gillette company, and created an entirely new brand around sort of being almost the anti-Gillette. You know, too many blades, 21 razors on it. You know, heck, it's more than you need. You know, we're not paying for Roger Federer's tennis endorsements. We're just giving you a good old-fashioned honest value. And it was kind of a return to value in blades and razors. And this is a brand that went for over $1 billion to Unilever to help them as they're trying to establish themselves more effectively in these viral millennial-friendly brands. And then Honest was created. It's struggling a bit nowadays as a public company under Jessica Alba's leadership. A good friend of mine, Nick Vlahos, is the president of the brand, formerly of Clorox. They're really creating kind of a new need around a very health conscious, ingredient conscious consumer brand for both personal care and various baby implements. So as new needs come up, sometimes an existing brand can address them. Sometimes it takes a new brand to help reflect that need and solve for the consumer desire in the marketplace. And here's a great example where Unilever has made it a practice over the years of staying fresh. This is over $100 billion, 90-year-old consumer products firm that has kept itself fresh by a series of acquisitions over the years. They've got the power, they've got the marketing minds to create brands internally within their own company, but they recognize that they're not going to figure out all the trends by themselves. And that this whole group of entrepreneurs out there that's constantly looking at the market, seeing what's changing in terms of consumer needs, and creating new brands around addressing those needs are sometimes in a better position to really capitalize on a new trend than having big company create its own brand every time it sees a new trend. And they have been doing this. In 2000, they bought Ben & Jerry's to really go after this new socially conscious ice cream brand. They bought a number of hair care brands in 2010 as well, Dollar Shave Club in 2016. They bought Seventh Generation in 2016 as well, going after a new way of approaching both social consciousness as well as concern around chemical ingredients in their products. By the way, Unilever was the largest company that Seventh Generation was railing against. And so in a way, it was completely ironic for Unilever to absorb Seventh Generation, bring them in, and then help nurture them for what they were and learn through their eyes on how to address these millennial-friendly, chemical-concerned consumers that were being served by Seventh Generation. Korean beauty, or K-beauty, was becoming hot back in the late 2010s. And so a major firm was purchased by Unilever in 2017 to take advantage of that and to help popularize globally the K-beauty trend. And they continue to be on the prowl today. In fact, we continue to cheer them on to potentially buy a new Miller School startup from East Carolina University. And that's the great place to end on. My hope is that this was a great chance for you to just think a little bit about differently about how brands are formed, the needs that they address, and different ways that consumers can benefit from all the entrepreneurs, whether they're in big companies or whether they're just new startups trying to create an authentic, hardworking brand to help communicate a great proposition and help make the world a better place through what they have to offer.
All right, now I know you all are psyched out of your minds to launch your brand and take on Dude Wipes and all of the above. But I think that Andy is really good at telling the story of people and how they figured out where they could play and how they could grow, and even in places that look very saturated and had tremendous head start. These companies, Dude Wipe to me is one of the most amazing stories because, they took on Charmin, which all of us grew up with Charmin, right? And the stupid little bear and all that stuff. They're now outselling Charmin, which I just find amazing, and continue to grow. So anybody have any comment they want to make about what you saw today? Geez, I know you're thinking stuff. I see your wood burning there, buddy.
Well, it's not so much about what we watched. I just wanted to, before we get away from this, wanted to skip back to I guess last Wednesday when we just had a class where we just spoke to each other and spoke.
Yeah.
Back in May, I went down to the Got to Be NC festival and saw Jack Nails working in the booth down there.
Yeah.
He mentioned to me that this class is how I found out when it was going to be the other one. He said that, and I think we did touch on this once back, that with the live streaming, this class was formed around, it seemed. There will be an archive that will be on the state's website or on the page for the Got to Be NC program. Is that still something? He said he wasn't sure if there was going to be funding or they were hoping
He's
to
working
be.
on it. Yeah, he's working on it. I think it's a little hard to keep up with that because they're a pretty big bureaucracy. But what Jack is trying to do is create basically a Got to Be NC. I don't know if it'll be weekly or how often the show will be, but it'll run on Talk Shop Live, and it'll have the Got to Be NC branding, and all of you will be able to put your show on that channel. And he's trying to get budget dollars to advertise and promote it. And I think he's making progress. I know he told me that he's moving it through the bureaucracy, but that'll be something that we'll be hearing about here, hopefully this summer. But yeah, he's working on it fast and furious, much as he can.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. And, and to that end, all of you should give some thought to signing up on Talk Shop Live. It's free. You get familiar with it. Kind of what you don't have to go live, but you can get a good sense of what's going on so that when the Got to Be NC opportunity presents itself, you'll be ready to take advantage of it. And there's a lot going on in that space, the live streaming. I know we've touched on it. but our because of really resource constraints, ideally I'd like to be able to offer a live streaming channel and fund the promotion here with Accelerate Rural, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. So Got to Be NC is going to be the vehicle. And so if you're not a member, you should join. It's free. Got to Be NC. But I'm hoping that they'll spend some money and drive traffic to that site. And my guess is the emphasis will come, later in the fall, probably after Halloween, as we get toward the holidays, and try to have a big push for the holidays, so you can go live on that.
Will there be another cohort in the fall, or is this it for a while?
I'm not sure. We tend to keep going. This is our third year, but the funding is somewhat dicey at this point. We've been told we're going to get funding, but I've been told that for 6 months, and the money still has not come through. So if the money comes through, we'll have another cohort. If it doesn't, probably what I'll end up doing is working with Got to Be NC to do this kind of thing, only under their banner. At least that's one possibility that we've been talking about. We're technically part of East Carolina University, so I have to kind of be careful. State agencies compete with each other, and Got to Be NC is part of the Department of Agriculture. But if we don't get funding, then I'll be free to do whatever I want. So either we'll continue like this, or we'll probably continue in some form with Got to Be NC.
Okay.
All
Maybe
right.
you can get Matthew McConaughey to fund it.
I'm working on that. He's got the extra money, right?
I must have looked into his eyes a little too long on the Talk Shop Live thing, because now he pops up everywhere on my phone with his green light initiative thing.
That's funny. Yeah, he's a character. So, but at any rate, I appreciate you guys coming. And summer is a tough time to do this kind of thing. But please don't hesitate to reach out to me individually. Anything I can do to help. My major value, I think, is helping you get referred to resources that can help you, whether it's website or this live streaming, or you're really branding. We've got a packaging guy that's really, really good, who's actually near UD's. He's in Greensboro. So we've got resources we refer you to, and always remember, we're worth what you paid for this. So it's a deal. Andy, it's called, isn't that funny? I got a brain lock. Buttermilk Creative.
Oh, okay.
Look up Buttermilk Creative, and Andy has spoken to us. He loves our class. He's helped a bunch of people in previous classes. He was in charge of branding for the Fresh Market. He did all their.
I'm trying to get in there.
Well, he can help you. His wife designed all the Fresh Market stores, and he was the branding guy for Fresh Market. And then they left and set up their own, and they've become very successful. They worked all over the United States with a bunch of brands. He's really, really talented, great guy. Andy Kurtz is his name, Kurtts. He's Buttermilk Creative, and all you have to do is tell him Accelerate Rural. He'll be happy to help you. And he also, for that kind of thing, they really high quality packaging guys, designers are insanely expensive, but he is not. He operates out of his house. It's him and his wife, very down to earth. He's swarming with kids all over himself, and he's very down to earth and very easy to talk to. And if you do engage with him, it'll be a national level quality at local prices. So I think he's incredible. I've used him for several projects myself, and
that's airplane quality at submarine prices.
There you go. So I don't know. There's nothing cheap about a submarine.
Some of them.
Yeah, some of them. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Buttermilk Creative is a real good resource for that kind of stuff, and we have other folks too that we can refer you to. But next time, what I hope I'm trying to teach myself more about artificial intelligence, and not just play around with it, but how do you actually use it in your business? That's Branson has a great story. He's using artificial intelligence to write proposals to small cities that want to hire him for their their weekly festivals or whatever, weekly nights out, those kinds of things. But I'm looking at how do you integrate it into your business so you can actually use it for something that actually helps you save time or money. So I'm trying to teach myself how to do that kind of stuff. It's a little technical, but it's getting better all the time. And so the next cohort will be pretty heavy on the AI, I think, and also more on the live streaming, especially if I can partner with the Department of Agriculture, because they've got such a reach. I think they have 4,000 members of Got to Be NC, and their goal is to get 30,000 in the next 10 years. So a lot of people.
Dennis, some AI that can interact with existing websites and basically populate all the stuff onto the different platforms for live streaming would be pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in that space. Yes, that's my exact goal. One, I don't think it's technically been released. I was given a kind of a peekaboo at it. Shopify is about to launch an AI co-pilot. And the way it's going to work is if you have a Shopify site, you're going to be able to add AI to your Shopify site that only you will see as the operator of the website, but it adds all of this functionality to your website. Like one example that I saw, let's say you want to have a sale, you can tell the AI, put all my products on sale. It'll automatically do it just with a voice command. Instead of going into each individual product and adjusting it, it just does it. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming. And to Jason's point, that's what I'm looking for, practical application of this stuff. So it's not just a fun thing, but it actually is useful. And that's all coming. There's a lot in that space. And Shopify's Copilot looks insanely awesome, especially if you're a solo entrepreneur and you don't have all these people. You can tell it to rewrite your product descriptions, improve your pictures. You can ask it, hey, what can I do to increase conversions and all this kind of stuff. So something like that would be helpful, I think, to everybody.
Hey, Dennis, before you go, I know you talked about Mo Farhat down in Texas. Is there anyone in North Carolina with doing Shopify work for entrepreneurs that you know of?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. The ones that are kind of formal, like one is called Dual Boot Partners in Raleigh, DUAL Boot, BOOT. But I find all these guys to be insanely expensive. A lot of them are doing work for venture funded startups. So I have not seen anybody with Mo's affordability and quality. Mo's stuff is as good as these guys that charge $50,000, but he charges $3,000. So I just haven't run across anybody anywhere else with that kind of ability and that kind of pricing. He does so many websites, that's why he can afford to do it. But I keep looking, and I haven't really found anybody that I would say to you all, call these guys, because I don't think anybody can afford them. But I'll keep looking.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, have a good rest of the summer, and don't be a stranger. Reach out to me. I'll reach out to you if I have opportunities that are helpful to you. But the intent here is to keep the relationship going. I consider you part of our group now, permanently. So you're welcome at any time we have additional classes to drop in, or if you want a referral or you want to ask a question about something, don't hesitate. That's why I love doing this. I love helping out. I want to see somebody make $1 billion out of this class, and I can brag and say, yeah, that guy was, he wasn't very good in class, but he made $1 billion. That would be my goal.
What's the preferred method to reach out to you?
Email is probably the best for me. dtrots@acceleraterural.org or dtrots@gmail.com. Either one is good. Cell phone, whatever works for you. I'm pretty flexible. I'm terrible at answering the phone. Like everyone else, I never answer my phone. As Fred Couples once said, being interviewed lying on the couch of his house, when he comes off tour, the only problem he has is the phone rings, and they go, "Why is that a problem?" He goes, "Because there's somebody on the other end." So I kind of prescribe to that. I get so many spam calls, I don't even know what they are. So I'm not good at answering the phone, but I'm pretty good at email, and you can text me also at my cell phone number. I'm learning my son finally made my texts ring on my phone or something. He kept sending me texts and I never knew it and I never checked it. And he goes, Dad, let me show you how to do this. So I'm now proficient at receiving texts and responding to them. My cell phone number is 252-550-0833. All right, everybody. Have a good rest of the summer. Talk to you later.